Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. And welcome back, everyone. Being in a relationship, and we all are in all different ways, whether it's a work relationship, partnership, romantic relationship, friendship, very challenging at times, especially when it's a codependent relationship and also when conflict comes up. How do you resolve that? What do you do? Sounds easier than it is, but trust me, it's not. Boundaries need to go up. What's a boundary? We're going to look at all of that today, and that's through the eyes of a gentleman that works with a lot of people to improve relationships and also anxiety, depression. He works with people in many different areas. He's got a PhD in psychology. He's a board-certified master life coach, and he's the founder and director of Life Coaching and Empowerment, LLC. Dr. John Carney, our professional of the year, joins us once again here. How you doing today?
Excellent, Steve. How are you?
I'm great. Wonderful having you back here. I'm going to be listening to this conflict resolution because this is big. Nobody really talks about this. And this essentially comes from a book that you have out called Heal Your Soul Permanently, which is available on Amazon. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But why don't we go to the definition of a codependent relationship? How do you define that?
Good question, Steve. So codependency by clinical definition is to some degree more than what I want. I base my life upon somebody else's thoughts, feelings, or behavior. So it's an enmeshment, an entanglement that doesn't allow me to really be free.
Mm. And what would you call it if somebody is in a relationship, but they feel that they could never leave the relationship for fear? I mean, maybe they have issues with abandonment from their childhood, whatever, that they feel they need that person. They can't survive without that person. What would that be called?
Well, that is excellent definition, working definition for enmeshment and overcompensating entanglement. Mm. And you see, codependency, you can have interdependency, which is healthy, but what you kind of described is just pure raw dependency. So they are dependent upon that person. And there is a stuckness to it that's completely unnecessary. Now, being in a healthy relationship is wonderful. Being in a toxic relationship is sick. It's not good for us, for them, whatever. And so we've got to know when it's time to disengage. And there's all kind of levels of disengagement. And so if a person's being abused, mentally, emotionally, verbally, physically, sexually, even spiritually, they need to find a way to distance themselves. And there's just all kind of ways to layer by layer distance, as well as, I work with a lot of folks that are in toxic relationships. And that's what I do, is to help them radically, progressively, though, layer upon layer, change that. But so one thing I tell them is, do you have an options mindset? Do you understand how to move back, disengage from that toxicity that you might be engulfed in? And they say, well, where do I start? And I go, well, one of the biggest drivers, if not the biggest in that, is fear. Somewhere,
100%. Yeah, fear of being alone, fear of how do I do life without this person? Let's say they've been together for many, many years, and let's say the relationship is okay, but they can never picture themselves by themselves. Very, very, very challenging. And maybe they know the relationship isn't right, but they're just, fear of moving on, fear of the unknown. Let's say conflict comes up, got stuff going on. Many times it gets swept under the rug. Many times there's no, the conflict is there, but it's not handled in a proper way. How do you handle it?
Well, it's another good question, Steve. And so in my book, Heal Your Soul Permanently, there is a whole chapter that talks about conflict, chapter 7, conflict resolution. And there's a lot to be said for healthy assertiveness and healthy boundaries. And probably the majority of the middle of the book is all about boundaries. But conflict resolution kind of begins with a couple of key passages out of an ancient text that I like to talk about. And it is caring enough to confront is one thing, and then speak the truth in love. And so people that are in toxic relationships or where there's conflict going on and it's not healthy at all, it's not what you call healthy assertiveness. And assertiveness, speak the truth in love, you see, it's on a spectrum. So over here on this edge, they might speak the truth, but it's not in love. So it's called aggressiveness. And this on this edge is called passivity. They won't speak the truth. They might be in love or try to respect or try to something tenderly, but they won't speak up. And so healthy assertiveness is right in the middle. Speak the truth in love. And relative to conflict resolution, we've got to care enough to confront. And so again, we're talking about what causes me to not care enough to confront the issue is fear. And so another thing relative to communication is in most communication, it's primarily process. There's two key elements: process, how you talk it, and then content, what you actually say or the words you say. And how you talk it is super important to conflict resolution. And there are methods to go about doing that.
Mm. How do you improve the communication? Let's say a conflict, we'll go hypothetical, conflict arises and one person is trying to do something to help this person or make their life easier, but they're not seeing it that way. They just think this person is doing whatever they want. And this one is lovingly trying to communicate it, but they're not hearing it and having it. How do you, when there's that communication block, how do you open that up?
Yeah, that's another good question, Steve. And so you've got that blockage, and it can be what you call person can be stonewalling, or they can be that they're just deaf, they're deaf, and so they're willfully not listening. And so again, it's a matter of speaking up, and there are ways to speak up. One of the biggest things is like in real estate, you've got location, location, location. In communication, it's timing, timing, timing. And so it's like pick and choose your battles, what hill to die on, but pick and choose when. And don't go into a highly stressful situation and antagonize. Also, you want to remember triggerability. So it's important when you confront, so timing, try to good, more relaxful time if you can, where you're not going to get pure defensiveness. And then speaking the truth with respect. What you're also doing is you're thinking process. So how am I going to go about this? And you also want to own inside yourself your own internal defensiveness or triggerability, as well as kind of be aware of theirs, not super responsibly, but be aware of that triggerability thing and be wise. Be wise as you go about thinking and talking about the heart of the person, and talk to the person and emphasize feelings if you can, more than just the issue or the topic to be resolved. Because, really, a lot of couples will go, well, I want to fix that person, right? I want to get to the solution of the problem. Well, you're going to have difficulty if that's your main focus. You want to focus on the heart of the person more than fixing them, because reality, Steve, nobody wants to be quote unquote fixed. They want to be talked to. They want to be loved. They want to be encouraged. Now, another thing to answer this question is real simply, if you get into a situation where somebody's coming at you with stuff, you can simply use a technique that I talk about a lot in the book. It's total communication technique. And there's 3 parts to it, but the middle part goes, okay, what I'm hearing you say is, and that's always a good point to, if they're coming off as aggressive, is to not just deflect, but is to summarize and respond. There's a difference between reacting and responding. And so basically you want to, okay, what I'm hearing you say is give them feedback, emphasize feelings, emphasize process, how it's going down, pick good timing, and be careful not to be super sensitive, but to be reality well-balanced, healthy sensitive.
We could just end on that. That is huge. And I believe one of the key points of what you just said is making sure the other person knows that they're being heard. Yeah. Wow. Powerful stuff right there. And we forget about it because we are reactive. We hear something and we feel we're right, or maybe we are right. Let's be honest. You might just in your heart, no, you're not understanding it. I did this because, and they're not getting it. But that's not the point. They need to be heard. Their feelings need to be heard. What about emotion? So I'm in a men's group, been about 6 months, very impactful. We all share, different stories and things like that.
Sure.
Out of my wheelhouse, by the way. John, never thought I'd ever do it. I was on a whim, and it's been great relationships, understanding, that we're all in this together. There is a belief that from the man's perspective, be careful with your emotions. Be careful of showing your emotions. And my jury's out on that, because men get a bad rap of you're not emotional. Personally, I am. I admit it. But I've found myself ever since, call it that lesson or that tip came up, that I kind of remove some of their emotion and gravitate more toward the facts. Like, the facts don't lie. This is what transpired. You have to be mindful and careful of the other person's feelings. But I'd love to know how you feel about all that.
Steve, what I'm hearing you say is you want to know what I think and how I feel about these emotions relative to a man. Is that correct or not?
Yes.
And so that was a perfect example of summarize and respond, right? So emotions are really powerful stuff. And here's some things about emotions. Oh my gosh, we could talk about that for hours, but we do have a couple hours today, right? I'm just kidding. So,
we should. This is so important.
Yes, it is. If we're talking about emotions, it's like, remember several key things. Number one, emotions are neither right nor wrong. They simply are. Well, you shouldn't feel that way. Where did we get that tape? That is so toxic. No, we have a right to feel, but you see, them neither being right nor wrong, they shouldn't be shunted or truncated, as we call it. They should be respected. Okay. Now you say, well, those are bad feelings. Well, again, it's not bad feelings, but here's a little formula to remember. In nanoseconds in the subconscious, we always have this in this order. Thoughts or beliefs, how we think about something, of course, it's begun by being triggered, right? And then thoughts lead to emotions, lead to actions. So we have thoughts, emotions, and actions. And so we have bad feelings. No, it's toxic or dysfunctional thoughts that precipitate, kind of cause the emotions. So it's a matter of looking at these feelings, which are really, truly a gauge. What are my feelings? They're a gauge. We should own them. Here's another key thing, really important with this whole idea. Nobody can make me feel anything, subconsciously or whatever. I choose. I might not be conscious about it, but I choose to feel a certain way. No, he made me feel. No, they really didn't. That's codependent talk. Choose to feel. I choose to think, and I choose to behave. It might be in nanoseconds, but I still choose it.
I'm writing this down.
Well, you talk about men's group. That's powerful stuff.
I'll be sharing that with the group. So let's hit that up one more time. Put a slight microscope on it. So there's a trigger. Then there's thoughts that come with the trigger. Many times those thoughts go back to something in your past, typically your childhood.
That's right.
That's for another discussion. Then that turns into emotions. Then that turns into actions.
That's right.
And you used the word feelings before, just a moment ago. Is feelings the same thing as emotions?
Well, that's really important. In a lot of ways, it really kind of is. But here's a little zooming in. Feelings, I feel a certain thing. Well, that's the brain is incredible, but in our different systems in our body, we getting all high tech and clinical. There's different systems in our body where we feel because of what we perceive through our five senses, right? And so, what do we feel? We feel emotions. So emotions are out there. They're a gauge, and there's roughly 260 in the English vocabulary. A lot of people, especially stoic guys, or more the logic type. We can talk about personality type and the 16 different types and why are different people more logical or more feeling based. That principally does come out of childhood. But it's like we've got these tendency to feel, and a guy will say, and I've done a lot of men's groups and they're powerful stuff, and women's groups. Well, I just don't feel. No, it's that you're not in tune with them. But you didn't come out of your mama's womb not feeling. You came out of your mama's womb with the readiness and availability to feel, but you learned along the way to not feel. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Boys shouldn't cry.
Right.
All this kind of stuff.
Which is horrible. And that's why I believe many men have that perception of them that got to be man, got to be rock solid. I spoke with somebody that believes that little boys I don't know if I brought this up, little boys have much more emotional intelligence than little girls. And I'm talking like around 5, around their 6, much more, but they don't know how to express it because they're told, big boys don't cry, man up, come on. So they suppress it. And then the perception of those age boys is that they're crazy. They're running around. They're all, and that's how it's coming out. That's how it's surfacing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know about men being a lot, more emotionally intelligent than gals, but I would say that.
And I was referring to boys, by the way. Yeah,
sure.
Just
sure. I got you. Yeah.
Okay.
But what I would say that causes our legs to be cut out from underneath us is a diabolical thing called shame. And so when we are castigated, when we are reproved, when we are wrongly admonished, whatever, we are not given a solid understanding with an internal freedom to be able to feel. We're shamed. And shame is a huge monster at the fulcrum of most things. And so how do we get rid of shame? Well, you talk about conflict resolution. Now that's a conflict inside. And so it's a matter of being in tune with the shame element. Where did it come from? And tapping into that, whatever, that little boy inside, that inner being, the deepest of self, because we do have parts. And so getting in tune with that and de-shaming. Again, it was learned. And guess what? It's not you as a person. No way. It can be unlearned.
Wow. We talk about conflict resolution. I never considered the conflicts within ourselves. Wow. I'm visualizing conflicts with other people, but we all deal with that, internally and especially shame, but we've been, as a society, especially men, shamed into showing emotion.
Right. That's right. And a lot of people say, well, I just feel torn. Well, there's another key scripture or thought that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. Well, that means I'm torn. I've got two things inside. Oh, well, John, of course we do. We all have that proverbial angel on this side and demon on this side, or we have this torn. A lot of people feel that tornness more deeply, but guess what? A lot of people, most people, will get into recognizing a depth of the tornness or the distractedness inside, the shearing force, literally, as they get into a deeper healing path for themselves, because things literally, like purifying gold, it bubbles up as we go after our healing. So, oh yes, that conflict stuff is big time inside before it ever becomes outside.
Almost out of time, but I'm curious about this one thing, and it's under the umbrella of what we're talking about. If you've done some work and kind of figured out a lot of what we're talking about and what some of your triggers are from the past, why you navigate relationships a certain way, and you get to a point where you're not as emotional as you were, you're not as reactive as you were, you're kind of in a more chill kind of mindset, which is good. But how do you know you're not just suppressing emotions and just pushing them down, which can be bad?
Yeah, good question. It is a matter of balance, like what you just said. And so it's like, okay, am I truly being authentic and real within myself? And also in trying to gauge that with inside yourself, how does that feel? Do I feel at peace? That's one of the biggest gauges as to what we're coming in tune with. Now, in the healing journey, it's going to get rockier before it gets better because the stuff's bubbling up. But we want to get in tune with that peace inside by being real with ourselves. And then the beauty of a group you're talking about, or coaching or counseling or psychotherapy, is that you've got that bouncing off of somebody. And so you need a safe person to be accountable to help you with recognizing that stuff, because it's a powerful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't do it alone. You can't.
It's not best. That's exactly right.
I don't know how you do it.
That's right.
I don't know if it's even possible. That's my view. It's almost like they say, if you're an author, before you go to publish, you need an editor. You can't edit your own material because you don't see certain things.
Right. Absolutely. Like Tom Hanks on the island, Wilson. And so it's like, we might want to go live on an island somewhere, but after a while, it's just not good for us to be completely alone. Absolutely.
Do you feel, now, final question here, and I see the water in the background of your background, and we're talking about water. Do you believe in life that we need to go with the flow? And what do I mean by that? And, parents always said that, just go with the flow, just go with the flow. That life is taking you in a certain direction, and you can fight the current. You can swim over to a log. You can grab an island for a couple of minutes or whatever the case may be. But the current is going to grab you again, and you're going to get to a certain destination because maybe you were supposed to be there. What are your thoughts there?
It's called resistance. That's exactly right. And so we can buck what's happening. We can resist it, or we can find a way to get at peace with what's happening. Now, sometimes we want to speak up and challenge it and change it. You better believe it.
Sure.
But being able to find our peace, our homeostasis, our oneness inside of ourself, and being able to find out, okay, what are we meant to be? A lot of times I'll talk to people about, who is your person? Whose are you? Who are you? Whose are you? And what kind of authority do you have? Do you know your power, your potential, your position? These are very, very deep, powerful things. And so, it's like, why do I have to fight against everything coming out of childhood, as an example? Why do I have to fight against everything? Well, folks, you don't. You really don't. Now, does it mean you need to cave in? No. But can you get in tune with where you're supposed to go and really enjoy the ride?
And realize that you can't control things that you can't control. So that you got to go with the flow. That's just the way it is. And you said the word peace before. What a powerful word. And I never realized that, go to church, people say, peace be with you, peace be with you. I'm like, I say it back. Whatever. I didn't realize it until I realized that I didn't have peace. I didn't have peace.
Well, Hebrew is called deep shalom. Shalom, shalom. It's a deep, abiding peace. You better believe it.
The book is called Heal Your Soul Permanently. It's available on Amazon. If you want links to it, or even to learn more about John and navigate this whole life that we lead and resolve some of those conflicts in your relationships. John, what's the best way to find you?
www.johncarneycoaching.com. It's Carney, johncarneycoaching.com.
Learned a lot. Fabulous having you here today, John. Really appreciate it, and truly looking forward next time we get a chance to get together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids. There's the bad kind, like season-ending injuries. There's the necessary kind, like having an agent in Hollywood. And there's silly drama, like the drama around my percolating pectorals. And then there's the drama you can skip.
Skip the drama that comes with not having your high school diploma or equivalency. Find free adult education classes near you and finish your high school diploma. Visit finishyourdiploma.org.
Or text diploma to 97779. Message and data rates may apply. Reply STOP to opt out. That's diploma to 97779. And leave the drama to actors like me.
Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.